Now that you've found the perfect product, what next? In this video, I will talk about how to order samples, especially from China, and how to evaluate quality. I'll also be sharing my experience so far in trying to source two new products from China and walk you through the experience that I've had so far. By the end of this video, you should be able to not only order samples, but to choose the one supplier that checks all your boxes. Keep watching. So let's jump right in. If you are new to this channel and it's the first time you're watching, welcome. This channel is all about documenting my Amazon FBA journey and just basically sharing with you the experiences that I have had, and hopefully you will learn something from watching my journey here on YouTube. All right, so full disclosure, one of the things that I must warn you about is that trying to source products from China is not a trivial process, in the sense that it's not a 5-minute process, right? It takes time for you to, first of all, find these suppliers and start contacting them, chatting with them, and basically finding out all the information that you need to um, to basically reassure you that they can meet your needs, not just in terms of the quantity of product that they can supply and produce, but the quality of that product. I must tell you, I spent maybe a week trying to narrow down suppliers for one of my products, and it's very hard. It's not an easy task, because the first thing is that China is on the other side of the world, and they're like maybe 14 hours ahead of my time in the US. And so when it's my bedtime, like 10 p.m. at night, that's when that's their work time in China. And so you will find that you will be spending, unless you want to wait one day, have that 1 day lag, you'll find that you will need to be online and chatting with these suppliers, way into the wee hours of the night, past midnight. So that's one of the things that you have to be prepared to handle is, staying up late if you want to, get things done as quickly as possible. So I think in a previous video, I did show you the template that you can send to these manufacturers to speed up the process of contacting them. And basically, you do it from the contact supplier button on either the manufacturer's page or the product page for that manufacturer or supplier. So assuming that we have been chatting with a handful of suppliers, we are now ready. We have narrowed down our potential suppliers, and we are ready to order 2, 3, maybe 4 samples. I'll just pull up my chat screen or inquiry screen. So you'll see here, these are some products that I was potentially looking into, but have decided against for a number of reasons, which I might get into in another video. And so if you look down here, for example, this supplier, I think I had asked about a posture corrector product. So once you contact these suppliers, you can go into your Alibaba messenger, and basically I kind of use this because it keeps everything in one place. Now, some people recommend you message on Skype, but that's only when you have already narrowed down your supplier to maybe 1 or 2, and where it's easier and faster to message with them in Skype or with WhatsApp or some other messaging platform outside of Alibaba's or messaging or chat platform. So I think I found that early on in the process, when you have a number of suppliers lined up, it's easier to manage everything inside of Alibaba's messenger. So once you're ready, Some of the suppliers they prefer that you pay through trade assurance, and that's fine if they insist. You can always pay through trade assurance, and you have a number of options. You know, you can pay with a credit card, or these other options. But um, one of the easier ways is also to pay via PayPal. Just make sure that you do get an invoice. Make sure you get an invoice outlining everything that you should be getting in that sample, and just pay via PayPal. It's trusted, it's safe, and if anything goes wrong, you know, you have the chat history and that invoice to prove that you did order what you said you ordered. And if you didn't get it, then you can have some remuneration through PayPal or your credit card as a second step. So so I just prefer PayPal, but to be honest, either way is fine if you pay it through Trade Assurance or PayPal. One of the things that I found as well is that when I paid a couple of the suppliers through Trade Assurance, it seemed to take longer, like for them to get my sample out. I wonder if it's because Trade Assurance maybe holds on to the money, or it takes longer for that money to clear and for the supplier to actually get paid. So maybe that's the reason why they take longer to send the samples out. But when I paid through PayPal, I found it to be faster. So but either way, it's fine. Now, once you pay for the sample, one of the things to keep in mind is that depending on what the product is, it might take a few days for them to prepare the sample. If it's something that they have to print or to create, not a mold, but to if they don't have the sample on hand, if it's something that they have to create or to actually manufacture, it might take a couple of days for them to do that, or a few days to do that. So factor that into your whole plan and timing of getting samples. But once a sample is ready, they usually ship it via Air Express, and that takes anywhere from 2 to 3 days normally for it to get to you. And usually, DHL is the one that I've found most of the suppliers have used so far. So maybe DHL is what maybe the cheaper route for these suppliers. All right. So once you get your samples, here's what you do. It's like you're doing an unboxing, right? Where you get the package from DHL or UPS, and it's usually taped up very heavily. Maybe they do that to prevent the box or package from getting wet or getting damaged. So expect to get a very heavily taped up box. Um, and then, so the first thing you do is you inspect the actual package that it comes in. If the packaging is something that you will be having ultimately in your end product, then that's something you also want to heavily scrutinize. How well did the contents of that package ship? Was it all shaking around? Was the box itself squished in? Was it all bent and damaged? Then once you open it, you want to inspect everything that you had outlined in that sample. So if your sample, if you were expecting, let's say, 5 pieces of this item, you want to ensure that those 5 pieces are there. Now, outside of quantity, you also want to check quality. That's perhaps the most important thing, checking the quality of the product. A couple of the samples that I ordered for a kitchen product, immediately I noticed a difference in the quality of the material. I think that I, I don't remember what the material was exactly, but it was some sort of plastic, and one of them distinctly was much thinner, much flimsier. Um, it had a very, very cheap feel to it. When I compared it to the other sample that I received, it was much more rigid, much more sturdy. It felt heavier, and it felt like, if you tried to break it, you'd have a much harder time doing it. And so immediately I knew, from just getting those two samples in my hand, I knew exactly which supplier and which yeah, which supplier I would be going with. And so this is why it's so important for you to get samples, because that is the source of truth, right? The pictures can only tell you so much and no more, right? You need to get these products in your hand so that you can physically feel them and um, and play around with it and see, how well does it stand up against usage? How um, how well will it stand up against just normal everyday use and actual shipping? Yeah, and especially if it's let's say an electronic product, which many mentors will tell you to stay away from electronic products because of the fact that the return rate is so high. There's so many moving parts, and so electronic products have a much higher failure rate, and so you don't want to be dealing with that, because Amazon has very strict quality guidelines, and if you go over certain percentages or certain metrics, they reserve the right to pull your listing and prevent you from selling until you address any quality concerns, because Amazon puts their customers first. And if you have products that are defective in any way and you have a lot of customers all of a sudden start returning your product, Amazon will really look rigidly at anything like that. So once you get your products, your samples in your hand, you compare them. It's always good to get multiple samples from multiple suppliers. Let me rephrase that. It's important to order samples from multiple suppliers so that you can compare and contrast the quality, and ultimately pick the best product for yourself. And this whole sourcing thing, it's really a balancing act, because you don't want to necessarily pick the best quality product, because it might not make the best business sense. The best product, the highest quality product, might be too expensive for you to source, and so you want to strike a balance. You want to find that middle ground between the price and quality. And so to quickly wind down this video, um, getting the sample in your hands is like, it's almost like the final link in that chain of determining which supplier to ultimately give your money to place your order with. Because at that point, once you get the samples in your hands, you'll know how those suppliers communicate. You'll know how speedy they are. Did they take 2 weeks to get you the sample in your hand? Were they responsive when you had questions, and responsive in actually getting the sample to you? And so once you have all these questions answered, and you can make an intelligent decision about which supplier to ultimately move forward with. So now that you have made a decision as to which sample is the best, which sample really meets all the criteria that you're looking for, not just the sample itself, but the supplier, now it's time for you to move forward to spell out exactly how many units you want manufactured, what kind of packaging you require, the terms for your order. For example, if you're going to put down 30% or 25%, and then the other 75% at completion of the manufacture process, and ultimately bringing you one step closer to launching your product on Amazon. So that's just about all that I had to talk about for this topic of sourcing samples and getting them shipped to you, and ultimately evaluating quality of your products. I hope you got some value from this video, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Join the Facebook group, and I'll see you on the next video.